This is episode number 556 of the InnerFight podcast. Welcome back to another edition of the show. Big shout out to our show sponsors, Smith Street Paleo. Hop over to smithstreetpaleo.com. This is the last week, I believe, that they're running the summer offer for those corporates. You and your workmates can get on a meal plan for a little special price. They've done something nice there for summer. Email them hello@smithstreetpaleo.com or just hop over to the website. Crack on with some of the recipes they've got on there. Make them for yourself. That would be revolutionary, wouldn't it? smithstreetpaleo.com for all of that. Welcome back to the show, folks, and I am joined today. This was a Skype call with April Davidson. April is a super interesting woman. She's based over in the States. You definitely, as I mentioned during the show, you need to go and check out her Instagram, which is April. She's really, really interesting in what she's doing, in what she's found in rock climbing, and the conversation that we have today is super open all around that and talks about different things, black and white TVs, and really what it's like being out in nature. So let's jump in to today's show. Welcome back to the show, folks. And today I have a guest who joins me on the line all the way from America, April Davidson. Welcome to the InnerFight podcast.
Hi, thanks for having me.
April, your story absolutely, just before we started recording there, I told you, your story mesmerized me. Someone tagged me in your Instagram, had a look through, went to your blog, and I was like, wow, I've got to speak to this girl. But I don't want to ruin it with butchering your introduction. Tell us a little bit about yourself and let's get started.
Oh gosh, okay, where do I start? So I'm April. I'm April on Instagram, and I am a rock climber. And love climbing rocks. I'm a bartender during the day. Adventure, outdoors. What do you want to know?
Your upbringing, when you were growing up, you're moving around a lot. Tell us a little bit about that, because reading your bio on your site, your life is like an adventure. And I think something that's getting a lot lost in the world today is people's quest for adventure, people's ability to go out and get lost. Where your upbringing, moving around different states, where you've lived and stuff, it sounds super interesting. So tell us a little bit about that.
I was born in North Carolina. Most of my family's from Louisiana, Alabama. They didn't move around very much. Like my mom's side, they're kind of all still in that area where they grew up in the houses they grew up in. When my mom married my dad's very adventurous. He had me later on in life. He was 45. So he was ready to see the rest of the country. So we started moving west when I was 7. And we moved to Ohio and Utah and Oregon and California. We've moved several places in between. But so, we were always kind of moving around, just my dad wanted to see something else. And there was times where we would just pack up and live in a 15-foot trailer. And then I have 2 sisters. We would a camper, and we would just go off. There was a whole summer we spent in a campground, and I was about 8 years old. So we lived in the campground all summer, and I got to play in the woods in Oregon. And it was just a really fun childhood. We were always doing outdoorsy things. And then we settled down in Oregon for about 8 years, then moved to California. And I moved to LA by myself when I was 21. And that's kind of my first taste of a big city. And I did it by myself. So
wow.
It's been quite an adventure, yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, we'll come back a little bit later to the outdoor stuff, but your story gets, even more interesting for me. You say you moved to LA, and then you went into fashion design.
Yeah, well, I was working at a ski resort actually for 4 years when I lived up in Northern California, and I was snowboarding all the time right out of high school and just kind of being a snow bum. And then I figured by 21, I was I should probably do something with my life. So I figured I would move to LA and go to school. And I had no idea what I wanted to do. So I knew I've always been artsy. So I just picked an art school, and then I just picked fashion design. I was this sounds fun. So I ended up being really good at it. And like, just because I'm a naturally artsy person. And so I had a lot of fun in school. But like my heart was never in it, and the fashion industry and the LA scene. Just really, I just could never get comfortable in it. So when I graduated, I kind of struggled having like a bachelor's degree, and I graduated with honors and did
Wow.
all these great things, and everybody's watching me, and I just like kind of just dropped it all because I just didn't love it.
Yeah.
So it's taken me, I feel like after 10 years, I came back around and then I found climbing and I started doing more outdoorsy stuff. And it just brought me back to like what I really loved. So I think I just found like the perfect place for me.
We sort of hear that a lot, don't we? Like a lot of people are like, I'm not sure what I want to do. I don't really know what I love. How do I find that? Maybe break down your experience of like, were there any triggers of, what made you think I like this or I don't like this? And, how did it go for you?
Well, being in like LA in the city, it was kind of hard for me to find other like-minded females and people to like adventure with and do like outdoorsy stuff.
Yeah.
So with my boyfriend I was with for a while, we would always do hiking and camping and do all these outdoors things. But like when it came down to like having other females that wanted to do it too, I just didn't have any. And so it was like um, it was just something that I always really wanted, was just to have more outdoorsy girlfriends. And when we discovered climbing together, actually, that's whenever it was just kind of like this natural evolution of something that I already like to do, is like be outdoors and be like adventurous. But then you're like adding this element of like danger, and it's kind of fun and exciting. And there's so many rad people like in the climbing community, and I met like incredible women that like I never would have met otherwise. And I've gone places all over the world now that I never would have went and seen. And so yeah, I was just really stoked to find like my groove with like having the community that I wanted and like the activity and being outdoors, because it's hard to find in LA.
Yeah, I'm sure. And I think yeah, LA being a big city, it's probably tough. I think a lot of big cities in the world sort of consume people a little bit, but somehow they're also somehow addictive, aren't they? Like people find it hard to leave that big city life, be it the career they've got, or be it and with the career, the lifestyle, the money, and all of this stuff. Was that anything that was your calling too much to the outdoors, that stuff didn't matter, or like did it go through your mind that maybe you should be having I don't know, I guess what we'd call a conventional career?
Um, I feel like I've been in LA now for like 13 years. And you kind of get sucked in. I feel like it's like this time warp suck thing. Like time just flies by, and then you get stuck like having to like hustle and grind so hard that like you're just struggling to pay the bills, and you're like multiple jobs. You never have enough time. You're rushing here and there. So like time just kind of goes by, and then I'm like, where did the last 10 years go?
Uh,
And so, yeah, I like now I've kind of found that I want to leave the city every chance I get. Like the last 3 years, I work in the city, and then every single chance I get in bartending, like I don't want to be in a restaurant. I don't want to go out and club. Every time I get like a free day, I just want to go out into the mountains and climb. So
uh,
I'm kind of getting to that place now where I'm like, I could see myself going somewhere else, but like this is home base for now. There's
yeah.
a lot of things happening here, but I do want to travel the world and I want to leave, and I don't need to be like stuck here. I'm starting to feel like I should leave.
let's talk a little bit about getting outdoors. And I think I'm fascinated with a connection with nature. I think it does so many cool things to us. It's liberating, it's natural and stuff. But again, I think sometimes when we're like the way that the world's moved now, that maybe people are not spending as much time in nature. What are your thoughts on that? Obviously you spend, like you said, as much time as you can just being outdoors, and you did since you were younger. What are the things that you love about it? What's your thoughts about it?
I think everybody should spend time in nature, but you know, that's also like it's a hard one because not everybody's like educated to be outside. They don't know how to like treat, the parks. And then I know I hate to say it, like litter and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
there are places I think like people can go and like get their doses of nature. But yeah, education is like key. That's why I really like the climbing community, because we're all very, very like educated, and we like help take care of like our climbing areas and the environment. It's like that's our playground, so it's important.
Yeah.
So if people want to get out and do more stuff like that, it's cool to join like a sport or an organization or some type of like happening, so you can not just go outdoors and not know really what you're doing, and you probably wouldn't take away very much from it. But when you're actually participating in things,
Yeah.
I think it does a lot for people than just being on their phones all the time or like playing video games.
from from what you said about the way that you were brought up, I presume you didn't really have much video games. I didn't think you didn't really have time for it by the sounds of things. I'm very similar. When I was younger, we sort of we never really had any video games, and therefore I was outside a lot. But you see kids these days, like they're all using video games and obviously iPads and devices and stuff.
We didn't have that kind of stuff. That stuff is all new. Like
Yeah.
I'm blown away. I'm like, God, I wish we had this stuff when I was a kid. This is awesome. But like I'm kind of glad we didn't. Like I remember like having a black and white TV and like not even no internet or cell phone stuff like that. Like that wasn't even a thing. So I kind of grew up in this time where it's a lot different than now.
Yeah. What do you think? Like, do you ever sort of think, like, because I often think that I'm like, yeah, we had a black and white TV as well, and I'm like, okay, life's been like this growing up, but I wonder what's going to happen to the next generation. Like, we're at where we're at now. I mean, we're leveraging technology right now. We're on a call. You're on the other side of the world. It's a different day where you are, and we're having this conversation, and in a couple of weeks, it's going to be on a platform that anyone in the world can download on their smartphone and listen to what you and I are talking about. Like, it's wild, but
Yeah, for sure.
I often think like that's the advances that's been made in our life, which is not super long, What do you think's going to happen in the next 20 years?
God, I have no idea. Like I think about it all the time,
Really?
being in high school and where you're like, this would have been 1,000 times harder if our whole lives were on the internet. Like you think about the embarrassing things that we did when we were a kid, but nobody knows about them because they're not on the internet. And I feel like a lot of these people like having babies now, and they put pictures of their kids online before their kid can even like make that choice for them. So
Yeah.
that kid's whole life has been documented before he even gets a cell phone. And I'm like, how is that going to affect people like 20 years down the road when your mom has already been documenting your life since you were a kid
Yeah.
and it's on the internet forever? So I'm like, I don't know. Like, it's kind of crazy to think about like where these people are going to end up, because I know if my like embarrassing shit was on the internet from the time I was born, I feel you never live it down. You're like, I didn't even have a choice.
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah. It's an interesting one. Like you say, sometimes it's on the mother's account, but I've seen now what we see maybe on some social media accounts, like an Instagram account, is actually started for the child maybe before it's even born. And I'm like,
yeah.
this is just totally weird. And then, yeah, like you say, it's where does it stop?
I saw like I someone started following me on Instagram. I clicked on it and it looks like a child, like a 6-year-old boy has an Instagram account and he's following me. I'm like, I don't know how to feel about this. Like, how
Really?
does this kid know like how to do all of this stuff? Like I wasn't doing that when I was his age.
Yeah.
It's such a trip.
Yeah, it's a strange scenario. I mean, I don't have any children, but we've got a couple of nephews, and they're like 5 and 9, and they'll grab hold of my phone, and they know exactly what they're doing. Or
Yeah.
they'll grab hold of an iPad, and I'm like, how does a 4-year-old, 5-year-old know like what's what? How do they know their way around YouTube? But they do, right?
Yeah, it's kind of nuts.
Yeah,
I'm interested to, I'm not having kids, so I'm good there. But I'll watch everybody else's kids.
Yeah, it's quite funny as well because you see it. I've seen it recently with animal owners like cat owners or dog owners also start an Instagram just for their cat or dog, and I don't know how I feel about
Yeah.
that either.
Yeah, I have several animals following me as well. It's a little strange.
Oh, so yeah, that's quite interesting. You have animals following you. That's
Yeah, they follow me and like comments on stuff, and I'll click on it. It's like their dog's account.
It's interesting. Let's talk a little bit about your social media, April. Obviously, that's how I got hold of you. You're pretty active over on Instagram. People should definitely go and follow what you're doing. Yeah, April is your username there, mate. What's your views on your social media? How do you use it? What's your objectives for having it?
Social media is such a weird world. Um, it is very strange. I feel like I'm in like an episode of Black Mirror sometimes. But so I kind of started to like really take it seriously a couple of years ago. My boyfriend at the time was a photographer, and we had started making art together because I have obviously a fashion background, and so I would do a lot of costume design, and we just really loved being artsy and creative with like our photos and telling stories. So I would create a costume or a character, and he would shoot it, or we would go backpacking or these beautiful places and shoot, just beautiful photos. And people started being like, you should tell the stories that go with these photos. So I actually resisted Instagram for a long time because I didn't like it. But then I was like, okay, I'll play the game because, we're working in a bar and a restaurant, and I kind of don't want to do that forever. So like this could be fun, we can play with Instagram. Maybe one day we'll get paid to like go places. So it was kind of just like this idea out in the air. We started posting like he would take photos. I would mostly just write about the stories. That's when I made the blog. I had to teach myself how to make a website because I'm not very tech savvy. Obviously, with the downloading Skype thing was an issue for me.
You did it.
Yeah, so it was really hard to like have to learn all of these things and be better at putting up blog posts. And then you're kind of like this one person production team. You got to be the talent, then you got to edit, then you got to write the story, and then you got to post it, and you got to so it's a lot. But it just started growing, and then once we started climbing, it kind of took off because I started meeting more and more and more people and going more places. So yeah, we just kind of tried to keep it like an active adventure lifestyle, and then it just kind of blew off. And then I started more working with companies and focusing mainly on climbing and adventure stuff.
It's pretty awesome that you had a real good look through your feed, and some of the shots that you have, mate, are absolutely incredible, right?
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, it's very inspiring for people that like the outdoors. You should definitely, I mean, everyone listening to the show should be going and checking your Instagram because there's so much cool stuff, and as you said, there are lots about climbing, and some of the shots, I wonder how or what position someone's in that's taken that picture for you because you're in like amazing.
They're climbers too. So when it gets really fun is like most of my photographers are better climbers than I am because they got to climb up higher than me and shoot me coming up, and while they're also hanging off the side of a mountain. So that's where it gets kind of fun. And I've also been in that role for other people because I like to shoot my friends too. We kind of sometimes go out and we shoot each other. Just because like it's fun to get artsy and get these cool angles and like just get up there and like create something because one person's working really hard and the other person's also creating art. So it's just really fun to be able to do that with your friends.
It's very cool, very very inspiring account. Let's talk a little bit about your climbing and how you got into it, what it means to you. Obviously, people that go through your Instagram feed, it's probably 80-90% climbing. I'm sure you do other stuff as well, but how did you actually get into it, and what attracted you? You said earlier like the risk a little bit, but tell us a bit more about the climbing.
Yeah. So I was like already doing outdoorsy stuff, but my friends said a climbing gym had just opened up down the street, They were like, you should come and check it out. But I was like, climbing? Like, I'm never gonna get into climbing. When you think climbing, it's more like, scaling Everest. And I'm like, that's stupid. People die doing that. Like, that was like actually my first like opinion of climbing was like, no way. But I was like, I'll go into this bouldering gym and I'll check it out. So we went and bouldered for the day, and I just fell in love with it. It's really challenging. It's something I've never done before. It's very personal, just like yoga would be, which I love yoga. So it's kind of like this own personal journey that you can like push yourself as little or as hard as you want. But ultimately, like everybody has their own challenges with it
Yeah.
because we're all different. We have different body types and like, so, yeah, we just fell in love, started climbing more and more. And then that following, probably like 6 months later, I went outside for the first time. And then I just fell in love because I was like addicted to it. Because this was just like everything I wanted in one thing, like being outside and adventurous. And then also like sharing these crazy cool moments with my friends. And that was 2 years ago in May, I believe, that I started going outside.
Right.
And I haven't stopped since then. So I don't usually take more than like a week off of climbing. I climb constantly. I've been to like 6 or 7 countries now to climb, specifically just this year.
Wow.
Yeah. So like I'm obsessed.
You could say that. How do you mentioned a couple of different things there. One thing you mentioned is your yoga. I'm interested to see if you use yoga to complement the climbing, and I'm also interested to hear, like, climbing's brutal, right? Grip strength, upper body strength, aside from the fear factor. How do you train outside of climbing? Do you do any training outside of climbing to prepare yourself and to be better at climbing?
Well, yoga and climbing go really well in hand because you want to have one, the breath work and the mental strength for it, because I think half the battle with climbing is the mental aspect of it. Because if
Yeah.
you ask 9 out of 10 people, more probably 10 out of 10 people that don't climb, they will say the same thing like, oh, I would, but I'm scared of heights. I don't think I've ever met a single person that's like, yeah, heights are awesome. I love heights. So, like, almost every single person is like, I'm scared to death of heights or falling or whatever. So it's like everybody. And that's like where like the meditation comes in and the yoga. It's like kind of like learning to have the fear, but you do it anyway. And you kind of like put it in the back of your mind. You breathe. It's a lot of breath work. Like I've actually been on the side of a mountain and been like, I can't do anything. I'm here now. You can't snap your fingers and be out of this. Like I just have to get through it. And you have to actually stop and like calm your breath and like breathe and like really do like the mental work. And then when you do that, like I don't know if you've ever been in those moments where like it's like the red lights are flashing and you're like panic mode. But
Yeah.
if you can actually slow your breath and calm, like things just become more clear and you
Yeah.
can make decisions, and then it's like not so scary anymore. So like that way yoga and meditation come in really helpful, like with the breath and the flexibility. Um, and then you want to like also accompany that with like some strength training and like powerful movements and stuff. But I think as far as like what I do mostly is just climbing and yoga, because my
Right.
climbing makes me strong, because
Yeah.
you just get stronger naturally by climbing, and then the yoga keeps my body balanced.
Yeah.
So
Right. I guess if you're if you're climbing as much as it seems that you are, then yeah, that the climbing is going to make you strong in itself, right?
yeah, I mean, there's a different level when you're like a professional athlete and you're training for like competitions and climbing and stuff. Like they definitely train hard and they train specific areas
Yeah.
that they need to work on. But like for me, I'm not trying to compete or be like, the next best climber. Like I purely do this for fun, and I push myself pretty hard. So I think it's at the most time it's like self-care, but also pushing yourself hard is really important.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
rest days are equally as important as like the days where you're climbing really hard.
Whilst we're on the subject of training, and let's complete the holistic view of it. Talk to us a little bit about, you're in great shape, mate. On some of the pictures in your Instagram, you're in fantastic shape. I want to know how you eat, because I think that's something that's obviously a big part of the puzzle as well.
I've been pescatarian, mostly plant-based for 11 years.
Wow.
So I don't eat meat, but I do eat fish sometimes,
Right.
and no dairy, mostly just plant-based. And I try to eat pretty healthy,
Very good.
for the most part. Not a lot of processed things and garbage, but just like real whole foods.
Nice.
Yeah, that's about it.
What do you cheat on? What's your favorite naughty food?
Oh, I love like a big fat burrito, or like tacos, beer, chocolate, of course, cookies. Like I definitely eat, I eat.
Yeah.
So I don't want to get like anybody to think that I don't. For one, like when I work really hard, I wake up starving. Like
Yeah.
just want to eat. Like, and you don't like me when I'm hungry. So there's like always like a granola bar or something in my purse just in case.
Yeah.
But
Right.
definitely after climbing, I love to have like tacos and beer or like a big fat burrito or like a veggie burger or something. So, but I cheat a lot often.
That's awesome. I love hearing from people that have such a great relationship with food, because as people will see from your Instagram, you're in good shape, but you eat, and it's good to hear that that you go out and have a burrito and beers and stuff, because I think that's normal, but you obviously control it and you train hard. So,
Yeah.
After, I guess, if you're out climbing for
You
hours.
can't do that every day.
Yeah, exactly. But I also think that obviously, we do a lot in health and fitness, and the shows we speak to a lot of people from health and fitness, and food is obviously one of the things that people are struggling and having a tough relationship with. But you sound like you've got it pretty much nailed there.
I mean, it's a hard subject because I think there's so much information out there. It's really hard to know like what's right, what's wrong. I just made the decision to stop eating meat 11 years ago because my mom passed away, and that was something that I did for myself. I never really was much of a meat eater anyway, and when I stopped eating it after like done tons of research on like health and nutrition,
Yeah.
and I just made the decision to stop eating it. It actually was like the best thing I ever did for my body. Just me personally, like meat doesn't like do well for me.
Yeah.
So I love fish. Fish is great. Like I eat that whenever I can get it in a good reliable source. And vegetables are just like way more they just make me feel better than eating like a meat would. So I think a lot of people out there are confused. They've been like told this or that, and then they just like, "Oh, I don't even know anymore, so I'll just eat what I want."
Yeah.
So it has a lot of like playing around, researching, eating this or that. Like dairy definitely doesn't agree with me, and I figured that out a very long time ago. So
Yeah. Right.
I just don't even mess.
Yeah. Yeah. It is
Cheese is really
interesting.
good though.
People need to, like you say, you seem to have figured out what works and what doesn't, and that's what we always encourage people to do. There's really no right or wrong way. I say to people, if you can hit your life and athletic goals eating pizza and drinking beer every day, then it's going to be, not that I think that's right, but it's going to be tough for me to argue, but
Yeah, it's not gonna work forever probably, but
yeah, exactly. But yeah, you seem to have figured something else out, or something that works for you. Especially if you've been eating that way for the last 11 years, it's obviously that's what works well for you, and that's what your body's now used to.
yeah,
Yeah.
I agree.
Let's talk a little bit. Obviously, we saw earlier this year the release of the film Free Solo. As a climber, you must have some interesting thoughts on that film. What do you think about it?
It's always interesting because when I talk to anybody that's not a climber, that's always the first thing they bring up. So
Yeah,
it's really interesting to see like climbing hit the mainstream because
yeah,
it hasn't been before that. Like nobody really like paid attention to climbers. And Alex is a very interesting guy. I've met him several times, and he's been climbing a very long time. And he did that a couple of years ago, and nobody even knew about it until the film came out. So
yeah. It's weird, isn't
he's
it?
he's a very exceptional guy, and now that climbing is in the Olympics too, it's just blowing up. So it's more on the radar now. But there are incredible people out there doing just phenomenal things. Like what Alex did on El Cap, free soloing. For those of you who don't know, he free soloed, which means didn't use a rope or anything, and climbed 3,000 feet up El Cap in less than 3 hours. Like it was just insane, or it was 4 hours or something like that. But that's insane. Like that's inhuman. Like that will go down in the history as one of the biggest feats of mankind.
I agree.
Like, that's not normal. Like there's only 1% of climbers that actually free solo, and a lot of them have died because it's not the type of sport that like you can have any type of error doing. So it's not a popular sport as far as like the climbing realm goes. You know, it's kind of looked down upon a little bit. It's a little irresponsible, but the ones that do it, they own it, and they are obviously good at it because they don't last long if they're not. So it's
I think
nerve-wracking for someone like me to watch that movie because it makes us all freak out.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. Like when you look at it, I'm not a climber. I climbed a little bit when I was young, but I don't really understand the risks that you understand. So that when you watch a film like that, you know pretty much exactly, I guess, what could go wrong and how difficult it really is, right?
Oh yeah, I think Tommy Caldwell said in that movie, he was like, people that don't know what he's doing think this is insane, but the people that actually know what he's doing, like this is like crazy.
Yeah.
Like you actually know what it goes into climbing something. And most of the things that I climb are like a single pitch would be like 100 feet. He climbed 3,000 feet. Like that's crazy. Like at any moment you'd just be like, I don't want to be here anymore. Okay. No, you're there. Like you gotta go up. You can't go down. You can't go sideways. You gotta go up. And that's it. Like, and one little slip, like if a rock breaks or if a bee flies in and stings you or something, you know, like all of those things are factors, and that could very well be like the end of you.
Yeah.
So
it's
insane. Nobody will probably ever do that again.
Yeah, it's funny. I was listening to a podcast. I can't remember which show it was, but they sort of compared it to someone running a marathon in like an hour. You know, and now the guys are trying to break 2 at the moment, and you know they're like the extremeness of what he did is like running a marathon in an hour, and I think it's very difficult. Like you said, like people will not really ever understand how extreme and how difficult what Alex did was, because there's no relationship with that, right?
Yeah. It's mind blowing, like to everyone, like especially the people that actually know what he's doing and climbing those type of things. Like that's insane.
Yeah.
But he's a very special guy, you know, like you can't look at him and be like he's like everybody else, because he is special. Like not only did he prepare for that climb for like 4 years or something prior, he knew every single hold and move on a 3,000 foot face. Like he could pick out any little section and be like, yeah, it's a right hand here, left foot there, like crimp, move over, then I roll my thumb over, and then I stick, my finger in this pocket. Like he knows he mapped out the whole thing. So it's not like he just approached it lightly. He studied it for years.
Yeah. It's what do you think that'll do? Obviously, as you said there, like until the movie came out, no one really knew that much, and it had been done a couple of years before, but no one knew about it. What do you think that will do for climbing?
It's exploding. I think it's probably one of the fastest growing sports right now, and especially since it's going to be in the Olympics in 2020. So it's just going to get more and more. And with that also comes the explosion of gym climbers. So right here in Los Angeles, we have a ton of like gyms popping up all over, and it's just this explosion of this gym culture now. So these people are signing up at the gyms because, they're interested in rock climbing, and then eventually they want to go outside. And then that's whenever we get into like a lot of problems with like access to these places. because people are going out there and trashing them.
Yeah.
They're, like going to the bathrooms at these like remote places where there's no toilets, so it just gets like overrun. There's like a lot of not good education or zero education coming from these gym climbers. So that's where like we face a lot of problems, is like a lot of these are just, public lands or government lands. And if we start trashing them, they're going to close them and then we're not allowed to climb there anymore. So that's
Yeah.
kind of like a big issue that's been happening, is like the more people that are flooding to these places, it gets like a little bit difficult to take care of them. So that's why education in the outdoors is really important.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it's very interesting. It's great that we, like you say, it's great that we see more people going outdoors, but if they don't know how to behave,
Yeah.
it ends up ruining it for everyone.
Or also like not being safe. Like there's been a lot of people that have actually died because they treat it like a gym, and in the gym everything is done for you and it's safe, but you got to remember that this is nature, this is rock climbing, this is extreme sport, and people can
Yeah.
get hurt. So I think that's like another big thing. It's like having a mentor, having somebody that can take you outside that's been climbing longer than you, that can show you where to go. Like I've been climbing now for only a couple of years, or a few years, but like all the people I climb with have been climbing like 10 years to 20 years. And they take me out and they teach me like the ethics, and they teach me like safety and how to do all these things. So like I know the right way to do things and I can be as safe as possible despite like doing something very dangerous. Like we're all very, very safe. Like
Yeah.
safety checks are important. All the gear we use is like top of the line. So that's like the biggest concern I think for me, is like when these newcomers are going outside and there's just a bunch of new people together, and then it becomes like dangerous because they don't know what they're doing. So
Yeah, it's interesting, especially like it's okay going for a walk or for a run, but when you're doing a sport like climbing, and as you said there, the dangers, it's yeah, high risk. So interesting
yeah.
what'll happen. I want to come on to a little bit more about we spoke a little bit about Alex Honnold there, and you said he's a great guy. I want to ask you, who do you look up to? Who inspires you? Who do you said something about having mentors there? Around motivation. Where does your inspiration come from?
Oh, I have so many people that I look up to. My mentor, one of my biggest ones, has been my friend Steven, and he's been climbing for like 15 years probably. He's just taught me everything. I have a lot of female friends that are like not exceptionally like the best climbers, but they're just like the most awesome people. And I swear, like all my friends are superheroes. That's what they feel like to me. Like they're just amazing people, just like pushing, like constantly pushing boundaries and barriers. And it's really inspiring to see somebody get up there and to just give it their all. And it doesn't matter what stage you are in life, how old you are, or like how hard you climb, but like just to get out there and just put it all out there and try your hardest and accomplish incredible things like you never thought you could do. And
Yeah.
I think those are the people that I look up to the most.
Yeah, that's cool. I love that as an answer, because a lot of the time when I ask that question, and it's not wrong, a lot of people will always sort of say, they'll reel off like sports stars or superstars, and and it happens to me. Like a lot of people ask me like who I look up to, and and most of the time actually I say my dad, and it's almost like I've disappointed people, because it's like they wanted me to say, they want me to say some big sports star, and I'm like, yeah, my dad, like, because he was there every day and he created an environment, and he was the one getting up, going out on his bike, going to the gym, and I'm 100% sure that's why I do what I do, So it's really nice to hear that,
Yeah.
you're inspired by those around you, by your friend Stephen, who's obviously helped you in your climbing journey. So I think that's really nice.
Yeah, I don't think I could pick just one there. I think I have like such an amazing support system of friends and people, and just the climbing community is really great for that in general. Like they've been there for me throughout climbing and also in my personal life. And that's one thing that's so cool about climbing is you spend a day out climbing with somebody and you're risking your life with them. And not only that, you're trusting them with your life because they're on the other end of your rope. And if you fall, they have to catch you,
Yeah.
and if you're like, there's been times where like, there's been serious accidents and serious things happen or close calls. And it's like, that bonds you, like you're trusting your life to somebody. And
Yeah.
so you feel like you've known each other for so long and you've been through all these crazy moments and like maybe you were scared to death and you cried together and then you got through it and you're like, wow, we're like sisters for life because that was crazy. So, and then I go back to the restaurant on Monday morning and I'm bartending. People's like, how was your weekend? I'm like, oh, cool. I just climbed a mountain. I almost died. How was your weekend? So it's just a cool experience. Like get out there and just like risk it, but like also have a lot of fun and be safe.
Yeah. What that must be, it's a really interesting point you've just brought out. It must be quite contrasting because you're really living your life. You're out on the weekends and you're having those experiences, and whether we could argue the whole day whether it makes you a better or worse human, who knows? But then you come back and often find this, you come in on a Monday morning and you've done all of these amazing things and you've got all of these experiences, and then you're sat chatting to someone and it feels weird because they haven't done, but it doesn't make it wrong. But it's like, yeah, it's strange because they just, what did you get up to on the weekend? Oh, not much. It's like, how can you not get up to much? I don't, what's your thoughts on that? Like, how do you put that together?
I mean, it's such a trip. It's like being in LA, everybody expects, and this is like pretty much true for like most restaurants in LA. Everybody's an actor, an actress, or in the industry of some kind. So
Yeah.
it's really weird. Like I get it a lot. People will be like, "Oh, you're just an actress, aren't you?" And I'm like, "No, I'm not." And they're like, "Oh, what do you do?" And they look very uninterested and like, "Well, hey, what are you trying to be a model?" And I'm like, "No." I'm like, "I don't want to talk about this." And then like, so they'll get into it because of course, like being a bartender is like being a hairstylist. You just hear they want to know all these things and you talk forever. But I say I climb, I climb rocks. And they're like, "What?" Like, and I think this guy said the funniest thing to me once because he was like, "What's your Instagram?" So I like told him. He looked it up and he's like sitting at my bar. He's like, "Only in LA is your bartender sponsored by Adidas." Like, what in the like, how is this like what? So
That's
it's kind of a trip. People get like blown away because I think it's something different. It's like, not your average. Like, how many people do you meet that are like, "Yeah, I'm a rock climber."
yeah,
What do you
yeah.
do?
Yeah, it's
So
it's such a sort of strange scenario, but it's kind of life, isn't it?
yeah, it's amazing. And I wouldn't have it any other way. Like I'm obviously not very good at working in an office and doing techie stuff. So like being outdoors, it feels good and it's like where I belong. And like I couldn't imagine bartending is fun and it gives me like the flexibility I can give away my shifts and take off for a whole month. Like I just went to China in
Wow,
April, like the whole month of April, I was there climbing
wow.
for Adidas and doing like some other projects and stuff. And that was just like, it's great to have like a job, like, that I can just take time away from and then come back to whenever I need to work
Yeah,
and do stuff. So,
that's amazing.
but it is like, it always makes for cool stories. Like, I remember the first time I went to Vegas to go to Red Rocks to go climb. Most people go to Vegas to party. And
Yeah.
I like, so I would like come back to work and my boss was like, "What'd you do this weekend? Why do you look so tired?" And I was like, "Oh, I just drove back from Vegas." And he looked at me like, "You irresponsible. You just party all weekend." I was like, "No, I was climbing. I did like 1,000-foot climb
Yeah.
and it was like hot. And I like almost got heat stroke." And he just like looked at me like, "Oh my God, like you are tired."
Yeah.
Like not from like,
That's
like I don't even go into the city when I go to Vegas. Like
yeah.
I wouldn't know what to do.
Yeah, I'm the same. Mate, I picked up something else that's on your website that I sort of want to almost close out with here. And it's the last line of your About Me section. And it says, "Do what makes you happy, stop waiting, feel everything, love achingly, give impeccably, and let go." That's pretty good.
Yeah.
That's really sound advice for life. Do you want to just talk us through that a little bit? And like, that's life rules right there. And I'm sure that's how you live.
Yeah, I mean, I'm 34 years old, and people like think that I started climbing at 31. So I feel like we hold on to so much. It's like just live, like do what you always wanted to do and get out there and do it anyway and don't hold back and like just do it. Like it's never too late. So I just really feel like you should just like, yeah, it's scary, but do it anyway.
Yeah.
Like, you only get one life.
Yeah, I think
So,
I think that's, very, very, very good advice. I think it probably, my last question, which I ask everyone, maybe it goes over what we've spoken about, what we speak about there, but if you could give the listeners one piece of advice, you've obviously learned a lot on the way, your climbing adventure over the last few years is teaching you a lot, but if you could offer people kind of like one piece of advice for life, what would that be?
um, maybe like whatever your dream is, whatever it is that you really want to do, like do that. Like whatever makes you happy, do that and stop making excuses for why you can't live your best life. Like we can come up with excuses all day long, but in reality, like we set our own boundaries and our own prisons. And it's like if you could just take a step outside and just be like, you created all of this and you can create the life that you want to have. So like if there was no fear and if there were no excuses, what life would you have? You should have that life.
You are incredible. That I can't say anything else.
Thanks.
This has been unbelievable. I'm really, honestly, April, I really appreciate it. You've wrapped that show up in the best way ever. And I was trying to write it all down. I'm gonna listen back to it and I'm gonna get that last bit because it's so true. The first part of it was just unreal. As you said, stop making excuses for why you can't live your best life, mate. Unbelievable. You're very inspiring.
Oh, thank you.
Not,
I'm doing my best.
no, you're doing a great job. Listen, I won't take any more of your time. I'm going to link everything in the show notes. I'm going to link up to your website, which folks can go and check out right now, yeahrapril.com. And you're the same over on Instagram, right? Yeahrapril, which is
That's me.
super easy. Mate, I appreciate you. I appreciate your time. Thank you so much for spending it with us. And I'm sure people are going to get so much from this show.
Thank you so much. It was fun talking to you.
Awesome. Have a fantastic day and climb well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.